Welcome to our video on arrays. We are going to go over how to make an array, how to access the value in an array, how to change the value in an array, and how to write if statements that check the values in arrays. So we're going to start with making an array, and I'll do several examples of how to make arrays. The first step in making an array is you have to decide what kind of data you're going to store in your array. So you have to decide, are you going to store integers? Are you going to store decimal numbers, characters, booleans, strings? So pick your data type. For my first example, I'm going to use char. So char is a single character. So my array is going to have a list of single characters. So I type char, then my square brackets to indicate this is an array. And then I pick my name for my variable. So what am I going to call my array? I'm going to call it my char array. Then I put my equals sign and I write new, because I'm making a new array. I'm going to type the same data type that I typed right here, so char. And then I put my square brackets, and inside my square brackets, I'm going to put the number of spots that I want in my array. So for my example, I want 10 spots, so I type the number 10 inside the square brackets. This makes an array of 10 characters. All right, let's do another example now. So maybe this time I want numbers. So I want whole numbers, integers. So I have to start by typing int. That's my data type. Put my square brackets to say this is going to be an array. And then I type in the name of my variable. So I'll call it my int array equals new. I type the same data type I typed over here, so int. And then in my square brackets, I say the length, so how many spots it has. And this time I only want 8 spots. So this makes an array of 10 ints. I'm sorry, of 8 ints. All right, now let's go ahead and look at those. So I'm going to print those out. And I'm going to add an extra print in here because on the video it often cuts off the bottom line. So hopefully it will cut this part off and you'll be able to see the arrays. So I'm going to run this. And down here in our console, we're going to see our 2 arrays. So I started by printing the char array, my char array. So we can see it has spots 0 through 9 because the length is 10. So we have 10 total spots starting at 0. And it puts these little empty quotes here. So I didn't say what characters are in the array, so it just put in a null character, meaning there's no character there yet. We could change that in the future. And then after spot 9, then we printed my int array. So now we've got spots 0 through 7, because we have a total of 8 spots. And in each spot, we have the number 0. The default for ints is 0. So until I change it, they're all going to be 0. All right, now maybe we want to just print a single value from that array. If we want to do that, we can add another println. And maybe I just want the very first number from my int array. So I'm going to say my int array, and then in my brackets, I'm going to tell it the spot. So spot 0, that's the first spot. And this is just going to print the very first value. So now when I run it, we can see it's just printing out the number 0, because that is the value in the first spot. Now maybe we want to change that. So I'm going to add a line of code that changes it so that the first number in my int array is going to be 7. So to do that, I first have to say the name of my array, my int array, and then put in brackets which spot I want to change. So I want to change spot 0. I use my equal sign to give it a new value, and its new value is going to be 7. So I'm changing spot 0, which is the first spot, to have the value of 7. And we can test this out by printing it. So I'm going to copy this line here, because that prints the first value in the array. So we're actually printing the same spot twice. The first time we print it, it should be 0. Then after we change it to 7, if we did that right, then this should print 7. So let's run it and see. And it looks like it did work. We've got 0 the first time, then we changed the first spot to be 7, and it prints 7. And we can even see and make sure that we're changing the first spot by printing the whole array again. So this is the line that prints the entire array, and I'm going to copy it and put it here. So not only are we telling it print the value in the first spot, then we tell it print the whole array. And we can see that at spot 0, now we have the number 7. All the others are still 0. So that's how we change a value. Now we may also want to check a value in an array. To do that, we're going to need an if statement. So we're going to say if the value at the first spot is 6, we're going to print out some text. So to do that, we're going to have the value in the first spot, so my int array brackets 0, and we want to check if that equals 6. So we have 2 equal signs to ask, is it equal? We're not setting it equal, we're asking, is it equal? So we have 2 equal signs, and then 6. And if it is 6, we are going to print out some text. All right, so when I run this, we know that spot 0 doesn't have the value 6, it has the value 7. So this should be false, and we should not print this text. So let's run it and see if that happens. And I'm checking down here, and I don't see the words it's 6, so that's good. Our if statement worked. Now let's write another if statement to check if it's 7. So I'm just going to copy this. And this time, instead of checking if the first value is 6, I'm going to check if it's 7, and then print the text at 7. So since we changed the value up here in the first spot to be 7, then this should be true, and it should print this text and say it's 7. So we can run this. And looking in the console, it did print it's 7, so that confirms yet again that this line of code worked, and we have spot 7 in, or we have the number 7 in spot 0. All right, now the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write a for loop so that we can check every single spot in our array. So in our for loop, remember it has 3 parts. Our first part is to create a variable and say what it starts at. So I'm going to create an integer called position and start it at 0 because all of our arrays start at position 0. Our next part is to write an inequality, a less than greater than expression. And as long as that inequality is true, our loop is going to keep repeating. So I'm going to say as long as the position is less than the length of the array. So my int array dot length. So if the position is less than my int array dot length, our loop will repeat. And the last thing is to say how we want to change the position after each repeat of our loop. And we just want to add 1. So we're going to say position gets position plus 1. So we'll be counting up 1 each time we do the repeat. Now inside of here, I want to have an if statement that checks if it's 0. So if the value at the spot we're checking is 0. So I'm going to add my if statement. I need to say what array I'm checking. So that's my int array. And then I have to tell it what spot I'm checking. So I use my square brackets. And I'm checking a different spot each time. So I'm going to put a variable in here. And I'm going to use my position variable. Because position starts at 0. So the first time this would look at spot 0. But then it counts up each time. So the next time this repeats, I'm going to be looking at spot 1. All right, so we want to check if it's 0 there. So 2 equal signs to ask, is it 0? If it is, I'm going to print out some text. So I'll say the value at position, and then I'm going to say what position I'm checking. So I'm going to put my position variable here. And it's 0. So I'll say is 0. So I'll say the value at position, and then some number, is 0. So when I run this, this is going to repeat once for every spot in my int array. My int array, remember, has 8 spots. So this is going to repeat 8 times. Each time it checks the if statement. If the value at this position is 0, it's going to print this out. So it should print that out 7 times because we have 7 different zeros in our array. All but the first spot has the value 0. So now I'm going to run this. And we can see it says the value at position 1 is 0. That's true. We can see that right here. The value at position 1 is 0. The value at position 2 is 0. That matches. And so on, all the way up to position 7, which is our last position. Notice that it doesn't say the value at position 0 is 0 because we put 7 in at position 0. All right, so this concludes our video on arrays. You can now see how you make an array. You have to choose the length and the data type when you make it. How you can print the array or print a single value from the array. You can check values within the array.